Hi everyone, I'm Angie, partner and marketing with CROING. We're a women-founded and women-led creative agency. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome you to another edition of our initiative, Women Who Network, Stories of Connection and Success. As I always say, networking has played a key role in my career, and I have found through many conversations that it is an area that many women still don't feel confident in or need a little push to be encouraged to explore further. At CROING, we are motivated to inspire and empower women to feel more confident in networking, and we believe that by sharing stories and experiences can encourage them to connect and grow together. I'm super excited to introduce our special guest today, Diya. Thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this initiative. I'm confident that your story will motivate many women to embrace networking with more confidence. Please let us know more about you. Can you introduce yourself to our community?
Yeah, no, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Diya Basu. I work at American Dairy Association, and I'm the director of digital content and influencer marketing here. Been here for about 5.5 years now, which is quite long for the marketing industry. In terms of networking, I think one of my biggest things is I wish I knew the importance and value of networking in my 20s. And I feel like it's really not something that I tapped into working on and working towards until I was really more deep into my 30s. And just the power of network and the power of building community around you is just so imperative, not just professionally, but just personally as well. And I feel like in the last couple of years that I've really been putting more time and energy into, whether it's joining different organizations and affiliations or programs and just like really putting myself out there to meet more people and networking, I really understood the importance of it. So I always say, like, whenever I do mentor folks now that are in college or, earlier in their career stages, my first piece of advice is always to, say yes to things that you're invited to. If you can, put yourself out there and definitely network, because it's just so imperative to really just build your own community.
No, and that's so cool. And you already answered our first question without me even asking. So that's amazing. It was, did you start networking? You already said like in your 30s, and how has your perspective evolved from when you first started to now? And I want to know a little more about that. Like when you started, how you started, and then now, how do you see networking? How it is for you? How is it for you?
So for me, I've been fortunate through my career. I feel like most companies that I've been at to always be able to really build relationships with a lot of colleagues I've worked with. So it was maybe I would say about like 5, 6 years ago that I was working with someone who's one of my best friends right now. And we started off as colleagues, but she really helped encourage me in networking and really pushed me towards doing it. And it's something she actually hadn't done too much of before either. She was actually in a mentorship program, and her mentor had actually told her, like, hey, it's really important. You should really join, like, whether it's American Marketing Association or she runs it, but not just join the organizations, but try to get on committees on the organizations, right? And then just to get more involved and deep dive into that, but also like put yourself out there and like get more involved in mentorship opportunities. So whether it's you're a mentor or a mentee, because I always say it doesn't matter what point you are at your career, you could be entry level or a CMO or CEO. It is still important to have a mentor or mentors in your life, right? Like there's
Yeah.
never an end game to that. So she really kind of like brought me into, there were some networking events that she was going to, and she had me come as her plus one. And with me, it was always a bit of a challenge because I've struggled with severe social anxiety my whole life. So I've always been more of an introvert where, people that often meet me will be like, oh, like really? Like we would never think that. But it takes a lot of energy in me to be able to do it. And then I just kind of will go into my hole and hibernate for rest of the night or like 2 days just to kind of try to recoup from it. But it was really nice being able to have someone who was not just a colleague, but a friend for us to be together, for us to really walk into rooms. It is intimidating, right? To like walk into a room where you don't know a single person. And there is that syndrome that you struggle with, right? Whether it's imposter syndrome or whatever the thing is, the syndrome of just sometimes just not feeling like you're good enough or, I'm going to be having these conversations with people. Like what are they thinking? And I think it's really slowly trying to overcome that. Not that, I'm sitting here saying that I have, of course not. That's always a work in progress. But
Mhm.
she's really who pushed me into the world of networking and the world of really getting more into being more involved in organizations. So it's not just being a member of an organization, but it's really finding ways to get more involved in the organizations and just kind of building your personal brand essentially, right? So
Yes.
that's kind of how it stemmed.
Thank you so much for being so open and honest about your type of personality and how you started, because sometimes people that haven't started networking, they see people that have, like they're some kind of superhero and stuff. And it is important that some of us struggle sometimes to, get ourselves out there, but we do it because we know that it can help us achieve our goals, move forward in our careers and with our businesses. So I think it's something that you can definitely cultivate, and it doesn't matter if you're not a huge extrovert or if you're not, it doesn't come easy to you. It is still important to have the tools and the skills to do it. And what's the most important thing is to understand the value that it has to any of us. So thank you so much for sharing that you have, moved forward in this journey. I wanted to ask, what strategies or what do you do to establish genuine and meaningful connections when you network?
For me, it's just really being myself, right? So I think sometimes we overthink it and you're thinking too much of like, oh, like, what should we talk about? Or, are there do I need to ask them about work? I think one of the main things for me is like, you don't always have to talk about work, right? It's getting to know the person. Like, I want people to know me for who I am as a person, like Dia, who's Dia, right? That person, like my career, my job, my profession is not my identity. And I don't want it to be my identity, right? I am driven in my career. I love what I do. But at the end of the day, I don't want for that to define what my identity is. And I can't speak for everybody, but I feel that's the case with a lot of people. So I think for me, it's really been just really building those personal connections with people, because it's like that grows into, from professional to personal, from personal to professional, but it's just more authentic. You're just more genuine and just really genuinely being yourself and not overthinking. Also, not being too invasive either. I think sometimes, I mean, I've been in positions where I meet people and it's a little too professional, like job interview-ish almost. And, for me, it's like when you're going into a networking event, it's not a job interview, right? So to
Mhm.
be asked questions that you might be asked at a job interview is, so like, what do you do? Like, how long have you been here? Like, what's your strategies and what's your goals and what's this? It becomes a lot. And it
Yeah.
works for some people, but for me personally, what I've learned is I don't have the ability to just dive into asking questions like that unless I'm actually interviewing candidates for a position on my team. But I've learned that I don't like being asked questions like that, because for me, it kind of turns me off and really like building
Connection.
that connection with folks. Because at the end of the day, my thought is if I'm going to specific networking events or, part of an organization, we're all there for the same reason, whether we're all work in the same industry or might have the same goals. And so we already have commonalities that we kind of know walking into the room, right? So it's like, be you. And that's it. That's kind of, I think, what's helped me be able to put myself out there more.
No, that's amazing. And what's the most unexpected opportunity that has come from a networking event or connection that you can think of right now?
To be honest, I think believing in myself more. I would say, there's been a lot of times where, the self-doubt is always there, right? On many levels for everybody. And in these communities that I've, been fortunate to be a part of, and the incredible people that I've met along the way the last couple of years, being afforded certain opportunities that I might not have been afforded before,
Mm,
right? Whether it's speaking on
100%.
panels, at conferences and marketing summits that I might not have been afforded before, where I would never have, 15 or 10 years ago thought that would make sense for me to do, or, if I build up the courage to do it for someone that is struggling with social anxiety so much all the time. But it's having people in your corner that believe in you and encourage you and uplift you and become your mentors unknowingly. Like there's people that I've met through these opportunities who have just happened to become mentors to me in the last couple of years And that's helped me build my personal brand. And a big part of that is just believing in myself and, working on that self-doubt and just having more confidence. And, it's just so imperative to exude that confidence to a certain level and to own it. And I feel like that's something I never really expected or knew going into really putting myself out there. And I've gained so much of that. And that's just, I'm incredibly grateful for that.
No, that's so amazing. Because you talked about different marketing events and communities. Do you have any favorite networking events or communities? Because we'd love to have your recommendations.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, right? Like I'm part of American Marketing Associations, which is fantastic, especially because they have the state cohorts, right? So depending on the state you're in, you can get more involved in the regional side, which is so great because there's so many, whether it's virtual or in person, meetings and things that they may have, that's easier for people to get to. She Runs It is another organization, which I absolutely love. They have incredible workshops and webinars, again, both virtual and in person. They also have a lot of committees that you can be a part of, which is really nice. So you're able to get really involved in basically, whether it's like helping plan these events that are virtual or in person, or, there's just a lots of different committees to get involved in. And the same thing with American Marketing Association, right? Like on the state level or
Yeah.
regional level, you can get involved in that. I also would say outside of just from a professional side, and another organization that I've been pretty involved with through the years that I've gone to a lot of their marketing summits as well is Brand Innovators. And they've
That's amazing.
they do a lot, nationally and are, slowly diving in to do a lot on an international side as well. And it's great for brand marketers and agencies as well. So it's a great way for agencies to be able to meet brand marketers, especially, and then brand marketers to really be able to meet agencies. I mean, there's,
Mm.
it's a good way to really like meet both sides of that. And then, of course, Ad Week. I
Yeah.
mean, I know we kind of connected through Brand Week, but Ad Week, I was involved in their executive mentorship program a couple years ago. And that's how I really got more involved in Ad Week and all of that. And, they invited me out to go to Brand Week, which is where I was, earlier this year. And that's been great for the community building. One of the things that I absolutely have loved about the Ad Week executive mentorship program has been the community that we've built out of that, because, we were all, whether you were like mentors or mentee, all kind of like, forged together. And we had a Slack channel at one point, and then we made that into like a WhatsApp group. And we're all, kind of like, hey, like, I'll be for this conference, let's meet up. So it's just really nice building a community. And most recently, I had done a mentorship program with Musa Tari, and he basically does it a couple times a year. And it was a really great way to reflect inward and work on your personal brand. It was a mentorship that was structured very differently, I would say, than what, the stereotypical mentorship program someone might have in their mindset of going into and what those expectations are. I think most of us that went into the program didn't really know what to expect. And to be honest, I don't think any of us really asked questions. Most of us went into it because we knew people who had done it and they highly recommended doing it. And again, with his mentorship program, what's been really, really great is just the community that's come out of it. Like we, there's so many of us that have been able to meet. We have linked up in person as well. Like we, when we were at Brand Week, a bunch of us went, we did dinner one night. So it's been nice to really build that network, and just that power of community is just so invaluable. And I feel like each one of these things. But yeah, like his mentorship program, the Ad Week mentorship program, She Runs It, and AMA have really, really cultivated that ability to build community.
All of those are amazing. So thank you so much for sharing. One other question. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I would love to know like what, because I know you mentioned at one point you were kind of going the engineering route and then dove into the marketing route, right? And I worked in finance for the first,
Mhm.
7, 8 years of my career and then went into the marketing route. So when was it that you realized that, you know what, I think I got to make a little bit of a detour to go the other direction?
That's amazing because I loved engineering and I studied it in Venezuela and I worked in a huge corporate company. It was an American company, actually. It's called Halliburton, and I worked in there for almost 5 years. But then, because of the whole Venezuela situation, that is pretty
Yeah.
complicated, I moved to Argentina. My parents moved as well. And, when we started being in Argentina, we needed something to do that didn't require a lot of contacts because we didn't know anybody. And it grew on me this capacity to do something out of nothing. So
Yeah.
I started Instagram accounts for my mom and dad, and my mom worked decorating cakes, but these gigantic, beautiful cakes that you see on TV. And my dad worked as a real estate agent. So I started this account and grew them a lot to the point that my dad was being recognized on the streets of Buenos Aires by Venezuelans that needed a place to be and to rent or to buy. So when my sister that had founded the agency 2 years prior to that saw me and saw what I have created, she told me like, do you want to work with CROING, like the creative agency that we built together? And I was like, yes, totally, of course, let's do this, because it grew on me. Like it was based on a need and a specific need that we had, but then I saw it like a huge opportunity and I was so motivated to do it. And then, my sister saw it and she said like, oh, but you like this. And then I started working in marketing. So it's been an amazing journey. And then from Argentina, I went to the US, and she also lived in Los Angeles, and now she lived in New York. So we've built this, obviously with the whole team, but it has been amazing, and that drove the career change for me, and I've been loving it so much. But thank you for asking that, because nobody has asked me about that before. Yes.
Yeah, I always love learning how, because I feel like so many people have never had the traditional,
Mm-hmm.
journey of a career. And I'm always like curious and fascinated to know when folks
Oh,
didn't
and
start in a career got
studying.
there.
No, and for me, it was like when I was studying and when I first worked as an engineer, for me, I was gonna be the country manager of that company, and that was going to be my path. I am so driven when it comes to my work and my passion for, I mean, because I loved it, but then
Yeah.
I realized that marketing was so exciting, and it's been really, really great. Last question. What advice would you give to women who are hesitant to engage in networking or are starting in networking? Just start.
You have nothing to lose, right? Like my thing is you have absolutely nothing to lose because if anything, you're going to gain something. You might gain one connection or you might gain zero connection, but the
Yeah.
zero still, right? Yeah. So my biggest thing is like you have absolutely nothing to lose. It's just like, putting yourself out there for jobs and stuff, or, when you're doing projects at the company or something. My thing is, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone says no, right? And in this case, you have nothing to lose. Like there's literally nothing to lose. There's only the potential to gain. And I tell everybody that if I could go back in time, I would have, dove into networking sooner. But again, it's never too late. But
Exactly.
that is always my first piece of advice to anybody, no matter the profession or industry you're in, right? So not just the
Yeah,
marketing,
totally.
but any industry, right? I have friends that are in, STEM. I have friends that are in just various other industries, but it's still so important and imperative to build that community.
Thank you so much, Dia. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights with us. It's really inspiring to hear how networking has shaped your journey. To all of you listening, reading, or watching, remember your network is your net worth. And stay tuned for more inspiring stories in our next edition of Women Who Network, Stories of Connection and Success. If you want to be part or propose someone for this space, please email me to angie@crane.com. And until next time, keep networking and growing. Bye bye.